Hello and welcome to a video about restrictions commonly encountered during building and pest inspections for purchasers to be aware of. My name is Ryan Craig. I'm the owner and director, senior consultant of QC's Building Services, a licensed building and pest inspection company based in Brisbane. We've been doing this line of work now for around 20 years and the findings that I'm going to elaborate on have been discovered over that time and are very significant for purchasers to be aware of, that are commonly encountered by us when we carry out inspections for a number of reasons. But every one of the following restrictions that I'm going to comment on can have a very significant impact on a purchaser, including the possibility of substantial financial loss. They can also greatly affect the quality of the inspection that is done and the amount of information you will receive from the building and pest inspection and reports because of the interference or restrictions caused by the factors I'm going to comment on. For this reason, our opinion is that no purchaser should ever allow any restriction encountered during the carrying out of a building and pest inspection to interfere or impact the quality of the building and pest inspection service and reports and information that is provided to them as part of their due diligence for a property purchase, because it's just so significant and you need to get the best quality information. At all times, we believe that purchasers should ensure that the best possible inspection conditions are available for their inspector on the day of the inspection, because that will mean that the inspector will have the best conditions to enable them to identify all building defects and timber pest matters, and therefore advise their client and fairly inform them about their findings so that they can make an informed decision. Again, if you don't do this and you allow any restrictions to impact a building and pest inspection, you are going to greatly increase your risks of sustaining financial loss because of the restrictions caused by whatever factor it is. Okay, so the first thing that we commonly encounter is really very avoidable, but it's frequently encountered during our inspections. That is the issue of having no keys made available for certain areas of a property. It can be for a shed, garage, or any part of a residential property that might have a locked facility. So the risk here, of course, is that in any area that an inspection or inspector can't get to, there is obviously a risk of there being concealed building defects or timber pest matters that can't be identified and reported on to you, which increases the risks of sustaining financial loss. So the solution to this would be that prior to the inspection being carried out by the inspection company, that there is clear communication with the marketing agent by a purchaser to ensure that on the day the inspection is being done, there will be access to all areas and all keys will be made available, so that be proactive and take these steps and don't allow you to be in a situation where an inspection is done and there aren't any keys available because of poor preparation from the marketing agent or other reasons. The other one that is commonly encountered by us, which is really, again, very avoidable, is the issue of where there are no remote controls or remote controls for electrical appliances and other electrical charged items like air conditioning units, automatic gates, automatic rollers, shutter doors. Of course, the risks here is that any lack of remote being provided for any item or accessory means that the inspector cannot check it and determine if there are any existing faults that would be able to be identified if there was a remote available. So the obvious solution here is, again, be proactive and advise the agent or vendor, if it's a private sale, that on the day of the inspection, all remotes to the appliances and electrical items are available so that they can be checked briefly by the inspector to ensure that they do start and activate, at least as a minimum. By not having any remotes, you're just not giving that opportunity, and you could walk into, say, an air conditioning unit that's not operational that might cost $2,000 because there was no remote available. So that's another restriction that is commonly encountered that should be avoided for the obvious risks of sustaining financial loss. Another one that we come across, well, not all the time, but often enough, is where a property is tenanted and the tenant will deny access on the day the inspection has been booked, purely to be problematic or because they're not happy about the fact the property is being sold and they've got a position of power to do so. often using a claim that they haven't been given the written notice that they are required to be given by the real estate agent. And in essence, what that does, it stops the inspection clause being carried out. So this can be a major problem if the tenant stops the inspection being done on the day, particularly if there's a 7-day building and pest clause for the contract conditions, because you really lose time and the ability to have the inspection done because it needs to be reorganised, obviously. So in the event that that situation occurs, we think that a solution for a purchaser would be to ensure that there is a provision made by your conveyancing solicitor to arrange for an extension on the contract of the time for the building and pest, so that any time lost as a result of the tenant denying access is added to the clause of building and pest, and you're not inconvenienced and have any less time to get the inspections done and get the information back, because obviously if you are in that scenario, you could be in a position where you're under duress and you don't receive the right information or quality information because it's time constrained. So don't be compromised by anybody else's actions, including tenants. Remember, you're buying a property, you're spending a lot of money, and you deserve to have all of the best conditions so that you get the right information for you to make the right decision, because once it goes past the building and pest clause on the contract, all of the things like tenants not providing access and all that stuff is irrelevant, because you're contractually obliged to proceed on the building and pest clause unless you've taken the provisions I mentioned before by way of arranging with your conveyancing solicitor to get more time and whatnot. Okay, another one that is often encountered by us, which can have quite significant effects, is there being a lack of power or a lack of gas supply. Obviously, if that's encountered, we are unable to see if there's any operational deficiencies in air conditioning units, hot water cylinders, gas appliances, anything basically electrical fans. So you really want to make sure that if you are buying a property where you are aware that prior to the inspection being done, the power hasn't been turned off, or it was already off when you inspected the property, that you make immediate arrangements for power to be made available and switched on for the inspection date, so that tests can be made on all of the electrical equipment. If you don't do this, then clearly you're going to run the risk of not being able to check any of the electrical appliances or fixtures, and therefore when you move in, when you connect your power, you might be in a nasty situation of finding out that there could be an air conditioning unit or something other electrical, a gate or something of that nature, that doesn't work, and it's too late at that stage to try and get any recourse because you've gone past your building and pest. So the solution is to make sure that power is available for all inspections carried out, and so that way you're not in any position of risk. Another quite commonly encountered problem or restriction that we have is on the day of the inspection, there can be some rooms or areas where a shift worker is sleeping and they've just got home prior to us arriving, and the agent and or vendor or tenant refuse access to that particular room because the shift worker has just got home and they need to have sleep. All of that's understandable, of course, because someone will be tired and they've got home and it's a bit of an inconvenience. However, if you simply allow that to be the case and don't make arrangements for another inspection of that area prior to any clause expiring for your building and pest, again, you're going to run the risk of there being potentially building defects in that area, room, or timber pest matters in that room that cannot be identified by the consultant or inspector, and therefore you can't be told about it, and it's too late once you move in, once you find out about these things, because you've gone past the clause of your building and pest. So again, the solution to this is to quite simply, if there is an inspection done and there are areas that couldn't be inspected by the inspector because they were denied access for this reason, that you make immediate arrangements with your conveyancing solicitor to get an extension on the contract, arrange for another inspection to be done at a time that's convenient for that area to be inspected. A failure to do that, again, will leave you open for the potential of financial loss because of the potential of concealed defects and timber pest matters. One of the other commonly encountered restrictions, which is not overly frequent, but it can occur, is where you have properties that are ridiculously heavily furnished and almost to the point where you can't walk around and see anything, a hoarding type nature. Doesn't happen all the time, but it can happen, and it really does restrict the ability for a consultant or an inspector to get really good visibility and clear visibility on all areas necessary to make a really good judgment on whether or not there are potentially major or minor issues there of significant cost for you. So The solution where this happens is, of course, to make, again, provisions legally with your conveyancing solicitor for there to be another inspection done free from any impediments, so that there's clear and unimpeded access for the inspector to see where they need to make a determination on whether or not there are any issues that you should be made aware of. Obviously, if they can't see, if an inspector does an inspection and it's heavily furnished and they can't see these areas, then they obviously wouldn't be able to tell you if there were concealed defects, and you would run the risk of incurring any costs if you didn't take any actions to rectify or make arrangements for another inspection to be done in this scenario. So one other thing that makes us laugh, and well, when we encounter it, it beggars belief really, but there are situations at times when we encounter a restriction which is purely and utterly because the marketing agent has determined that the maximum amount of time that they will give for an inspection to be carried out on a property is up to them, and normally it's around 1 hour. The reasons for them doing this on the occasions we encounter it is purely and simply because, one, they have another appointment somewhere else, which is apparently more important than the quality of the building and pest being done for the purchaser we're acting for, or two, that all the other inspection companies only need an hour to do the job, so therefore you're only going to get an hour, which when we reply to them, that's completely irrelevant, and we will determine how much time we need to do the job. The job hasn't been finished in that time frame. Most of the time the agents will huff and puff and will find a space somewhere and sit down and complain about it, but allow us to take the time we need to do the job where we feel competent and that it's been done in an adequate manner, so that we give a good service to our clients. We never rush. We have never allowed ourselves to be pressured in any way with time from anyone else, agents, vendors, or any other party, because if you do that, you're not doing your job properly as an inspector. So most agents will actually concede and allow more time because they're told that, hey, we haven't finished our job and it's not relevant what any other parties or consultants do, and we'll determine how long we need to do the job. However, on some occasions, there are agents who simply advise us that it's not relevant as to whether or not we're finished. They have determined that that is an adequate time for the job to be done. They give no consideration to what we tell them, and they deny any further access to the property, and they lock the house up. And in those situations, we're simply forced to advise our clients that we were denied the adequate time to carry out our job because the agent had other things to do and didn't give us this time to do our job. Now, if that happens, which does happen quite often, more often than not, then you simply must not allow that to impede or interfere with the findings and information you get from a building and pest inspection. And you, in our opinion, you must take action to arrange immediately for a further inspection to be carried out, allowing the inspection company all the time they need at their determination to do their job without anyone else having any comment or feedback on it, because it's not relevant as to how long they feel if they're not the inspector of the, carrying out the job. Never allow the marketing agent to dictate the time because of how they feel it should be done. Again, take the necessary legal actions to get extensions on your contract, make further arrangements for another inspection to be done to allow the job to be done properly and for you to get the right information. If you don't do this, you are at serious risk of, obviously the inspection won't be completed. There will be areas that haven't been inspected, and the consultant will tell you that. And quite unbelievably, we do see on occasions where this happens, where our clients will actually not make arrangements for another inspection, and they take the risk on board and allow the agent to dictate that time allowed for some reason, but they shouldn't. And if you do that, then you're going to run the risk of incurring financial costs through potential defects and timber pest matters that are in these areas that were uninspected. So in summary, with these, they're not all the restrictions that can be encountered, but they're some of the ones that we encounter on a frequent basis. But in summary, basically, never allow any restriction that is encountered during the carrying out of a building and pest inspection and the providing of a report to affect the information you receive and the quality of information you receive, because this will greatly increase the risks of you sustaining financial loss. Always ensure a building inspection is carried out free from any impediment, and if they are encountered, make sure you take immediate and whatever necessary actions to overcome that restriction and make sure it doesn't affect the information that you get. Again, failure to do this, you're going to increase your risk of sustaining financial loss. Well, you may not incur any, but you are increasing your risk significantly, and no one should be put in that position with restrictions that are avoidable and can be dealt with. And you deserve to have that quality of that kind of environment as a purchaser and receive the right information to make such a big decision on the purchase of a property. That's pretty much a summary of this issue, and I hope that's been of benefit to you, and you certainly apply that to your property purchase in the future when you do your building and pest. And just again, I can't stress enough, make sure that you control the environment and dictate what terms the inspection is done, and don't accept any restrictions. Deal with them and demand that they're overcome, and you do not proceed legally and let the building and pest clause go until you do overcome any restrictions you encounter, because you will, by doing that, you will be in the best position to avoid the risks of any loss, and you'll be enabling yourself to get the best quality information to make the right decision. Thanks very much. Hope this was again of benefit to you, and thanks for watching.